Good morning. This is Shivapampa Sharma JP. I'm an MSc Biotechnology graduate. I have been graduated from Bangalore University. I'm passionate towards teaching. As I'm from a biotechnology background, I would like to teach biology topics. And in today, we will discuss about a topic called as immunity. So, first, when we hear about the topic immunity, what do you understand? So before I get into my topic, I would like to say with an example like India is protected against its neighboring countries through there are someone called as soldiers who protects us against the enemies from the neighboring countries. In the same way, our body is protected against the pathogens such as bacteria, viruses, fungi, etc. through a process or through a mechanism called as immunity. So, what does this immunity refers to? Immunity refers to the body's intricate defense mechanism designed to protect against harmful pathogens. As said, that is the bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites, as well as abnormal cells like the cancerous cells. The study of cancer is called as oncology. This system is composed of two primary branches: innate immunity and acquired adaptive immunity. So adaptive or acquired immunity, anything is the same. Innate immunity acts as the first line of defense, providing the rapid non-specific protection through the physical barriers like the skin and the mucous membranes. Where do you find the mucous membranes? And the chemical mediators such as the enzymes, antimicrobial peptides, and the immune cells. These are the important. These are like our soldiers. Those are the macrophages and natural killer cells. In contrast, these are the innate immunity. And when it comes to the adaptive or acquired immunity, those in contrast is highly specific and develops the over time, involving lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are T cells and B cells. They recognize specific antigen and create immunological memory. This immunological memory is created through memory cells. These are the subtype of B cells which are being created by the B cells and for the faster response upon re-exposure. So if the same antigen appears again inside the body, the memory cells recognize, oh, this is the specific antigen which has been invaded previous. So it acts as a specific, okay, and recognizes it and distinguish between self and non-self. This is the important. If the immune cells act on the body's self healthy cells, it is called as autoimmune disorders. So we need to regulate whether this is the self cells or the non-self. There comes the important topic, that is the MHC, major histocompatibility complex. So we will deal with it later. There are two types, MHC1 and MHC2. MHC1 is present in all the types of cells, and MHC2 is present on specific type of cells, though those are dendritic cells, macrophages, B cells, etc. And maintaining the ability to detect and neutralize threats. Factors such as genetics, nutrition, and lifestyle and exposure to environment antigens influence the immune functions, underscoring its dynamics and multifaceted nature essential for maintaining the health and survival. So I hope you could understand a brief about what is this immunity and innate and acquired immunity and the factors which could regulate this immunity. I hope you understand it. So now let's jump into, so now we have understood the introduction about what is immunity. So the types of immunity, those are the innate and the adaptive immunity. So what is this innate and adaptive immunity? Innate immunity, as mentioned earlier, it is the body's first line of defense, provide immediate non-specific. So I underline the word the immediate and non-specific. So when it comes to adaptive, those are specific. Oh, like the lock and key mechanism, immediate and protection against a wide range of pathogens. It includes the physical barriers as mentioned, skin, the mucous membranes, and the chemical barriers such as the stomach acid. The pH of the stomach acid is approximately 1.2, so it could dissolve anything. So you could ask me a question, so if it could dissolve anything, the acid, then how it is been protected, how it is been stored in our stomach? So there is a mucous membrane, epithelial cells of mucous membrane, which is replenished every 3 to 4 days. And if there is any damage in this mucous membrane and the acid would leak out and damage the other organs. And there are antimicrobial peptides and cellular components like the macrophages, neutrophils, dendritic cells, and the natural killer cells, that is the NK cells. So there is a special type of the dendritic cells. When we speak about it, it is the antigen presenting cells. So what is this antigen presenting cells means? When a foreign particle enters in a body, these antigen presenting cells captures it and expresses a peptide signaling upon its surface, that is called as major histocompatibility complex. It is been recognized by the T cells and it causes the next cascade of events. And next comes the adaptive immunity. On the other hand, the adaptive immunity develops slowly and is highly specific to a particular pathogen. It is mediated by the lymphocyte, B cells and the T cells. T cells like the Th cells, T helper cells, T cytokine cells, where these cytokines and interferons, interleukins, these comes into picture, like the interleukin 2, 3, 4. There are approximately 51 interleukins and interferons which are against the viruses, like the interferon alpha, beta, and the gamma. Gamma is more which causes the destructive to the viruses. And immune response, T helper cells or directly kills infected cells, the TC cells which releases certain chemicals and causes the destroy of the invaded antigen or the pathogen. So adaptive immunity also features immunological memory. As mentioned, it forms the memory cells, so which could recognize this pathogen upon re-exposure, allowing the body to mount a faster and more rebirth response to previously encountered pathogens, which is the principle behind the vaccination. So if you could ask me a doubt, everyone has been through the cold, right? The cold is been caused by rhinovirus. Now we have been taught that the memory cells are being there. So if the person is been one infected with cold, he must not have been infected later on with the cold, right? So there is the answer. The answer lies in the virus structure. The rhinovirus, once encountered into the body, changes its structure rapidly. Every time when it encounters, it changes its structure rapidly. So our body defense mechanism takes its own time to cause a effect or the cascade of events against the rhinovirus. So now we have been taught about the what is this. So here we could see the components of the immune system, as mentioned, the cells, etc., etc. And now let's understand a deep about the mechanisms of innate and acquired immunity. So the innate immunity composed of the barriers, that is the skin, mucosal surface, and chemicals like antimicrobial enzymes, acid, pH, and the biological barriers prevent the pathogen entry. And the recognition pathogens. So how it has been recognized, how it has been recognized. The pattern recognition receptors. I'll repeat it once again. Pattern recognition receptors on innate immune cells detect pathogen associated molecular patterns. I'll repeat it once again. Pattern recognition receptors on innate immune cells detect pathogen associated molecular patterns and damage associated molecular patterns, signaling the presence of infectious or cellular entry. Examples of PRBS includes toll-like receptors and NOD-like receptors. So here comes the pattern recognition receptors and the pattern pathogen associated molecular patterns. These are the important terminologies which you need to remember, like the examples like the toll-like receptors and the NOD-like receptors. And the phagocytosis comes into play. Phagocytosis, the first thing you need to understand when the phagocytosis word comes is that is the macrophages, which engulfs and destroys the pathogen. So the inflammation, pro-inflammatory cytokines such as IL-1, IL-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha are being released into the bloodstreams and recruit immune cells and vesicular permeability. So, and next comes the, let's now understand about the mechanism of acquired immunity. So acquired immunity is slower but response but highly specific. So antigen recognition, how the antigens are being recognized. So if you all could remember, I said the word that is dendritic cells. These dendritic cells which contains the MHC2 which captures this antigen and processes it and shows a signaling peptide on its surface, so that when the T cell has this complementary receptor, get binds to it. So lymphocyte helper T cell CD4 plus releases cytokines to activate other immune cells such as B cells and cytotoxic T cells. So remember this helper T cells. So in case of a patients with HIV, these helper T cells are being reduced drastically. So the body's immune system is obviously compromised. So why the HIV? If a person is being infected with HIV, he gets all sort of other secondary disorders. So after the B cells of encountering an antigen, B cell differentiate into the plasma cells, which produces the antibodies and memory B cells, which in turn produces the immunity. So there are antibodies. When we come to the antibodies, there are 5 different types of antibodies. Those are, we could remember them as GAMED, GAMED, GAMED. What is this GAMED? IgG, IgA, IgM, IgE, and IgD. In the further classes, we could learn in detail about each of these structure. So how these are being differentiated and how the structure are different. So the difference in the structure lies in the hinge region. Remember, the difference lies in the hinge region, and there is a coordination between this innate and acquired immunity. So there is like 3H1 Th2 polarization, etc. We will deal about it later. So now we have learned about the mechanism of innate immunity and the mechanism of adaptive immunity. So the humoral and cell mediated immunity are being the same. So next comes the immune response. So as mentioned, the primary response and the secondary response. And next comes the disorders of immune system. So if our antibodies or the immune cells act upon the self cells, so it is called as autoimmune disease. So and SCID and HIV and rheumatoid arthritis, these are the immune disorders of the immune system. So vaccination and immunity. So principle of vaccination is mimicking the infection to build immunity. So as you know, in the COVID-19 pandemic, we have all got the vaccination because it contains the pre-antigen through which our cells recognizes this and produces the antibody, like the memory cells. And the current research in immunology, this is the topic which I have been fascinated. That is the CAR T therapy, which is called as chimeric antigen receptor T cells. It likes, I will explain in a brief. These T cells are being engineered in such a way that these goes and binds to the cancer cells and destruct the cancer cells. Like there is Chimera, which is an example for this one, and the mRNA vaccines, as we know. And so I would like to conclude the topic like the today we have been learned the immune system is a complex network protecting against the diseases. It protects us and advances immunology, revolutionizes treatment for infection, cancer, and autoimmune disorders. Further research to hold promises for personalized therapies. So these are the references which have been gone through. You could have a clear thought.